guess what? We're back for another exciting, fantastical, mystical episode of the Depression Vacation Podcast.
The Depression Vacation Podcast. Bow, 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 bow.
It is very early in the morning. I think Shannon and I were both up way too late last night, and we just need to psych ourselves up. We have our coffee.
Yep.
We have our coffee. And all of our other stuff. Like, I don't know about you, but I ended up staying up until almost 3 in the morning yesterday, and I never do that. And I wasn't even doing anything. I was just sort of dicking around in my bedroom, playing Hearthstone.
Is that what they call it now?
Dicking around? I mean, it's one of those.
Dirty joke.
Dick means penis. I get it.
This is my peak comedy at this hour.
Shannon just wakes up with penis on the brain, I suppose. It's fair.
Yeah, I mean, my hoe days are over now, but you know, it is what it is.
Your hoe days ended so much earlier than my hoe days, which makes sense because you were probably You're what are you?
26.
26.
Yeah.
You're so young. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was not a functional human being emotionally or anything at 26. So.
Kind of wish I wasn't. I kind of wish that I was completely dependent on other people.
It wasn't that I was dependent on other people. Well, I was, but it was more like just did not know how to actually function with people and
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's weird. 26 is when I moved to Los Angeles, and I think about that a lot. That if I had the maturity level I do now as when I went to Los Angeles, I was like, things probably would have been a lot different. So.
Oh, well. You look back, and it's like, that's the past. You know?
I actually was having a pretty interesting conversation with so my mom and I actually went down to Malvern on Thursday to help my aunt pack up her house, and also to get she was giving me away a lot of furniture and stuff. Hey, I have a functional kitchen table for
Hey,
not
one that's not gonna collapse when you breathe heavy on it.
Yeah, and it looks so much nicer too. And a funny side story, it was my dad's bachelor table when he first moved to Harrisburg, but he didn't take very good care of it. There were like soda stains and stuff all over it. So my aunt took it like 20 years ago and like re-varnished and refinished it. And
you've lost your table privileges, Hal's dad.
Yeah. Now you just have to hold your drink. But anyway, where I started initially with this, that should be actually the catchphrase of this podcast.
Where I started initially?
Yeah.
But back to my original point.
Yeah, we were talking about like a lot of things. My mom's a pretty good conversationalist, and that's why I like taking trips with her. And I forget whether it was me who brought this up, but it was like the key to being happy is like not inflating your expectations of life. And I think that's what my key to happiness was like when I moved back from LA, within a couple of years, I kind of realized it's like, you know what, this is probably my life, just making movies on the side, working a job where I can pay my bills, maybe eventually own a house, just living a nice, simple life where I get to do arty things on the side. And accepting that has made me the happiest Hal possible.
Yeah, I honestly have had very similar conversations recently with like clients that I've had, because you know I help a lot of people who are in like debt, and they talk about like these struggles that they've been having, and how they got to this point in life where they need to rebuild their credit and things like that. Yeah. And I always I share a little bit about me, and I'm like, listen, I've made choices and mistakes in my life. I've I've changed my plans how many times, and that I when I was like 17, I thought I had everything like planned out. I was gonna go to like film school and learn how to make movies and things like that. And then just things didn't line up. And then I ended up going to Hack. And the first year I was at Hack, I didn't know what I was working towards. I didn't know what I was going to do. Then the plan was law school. And then a pandemic happened. So then the plan was banking. And then I got fired. And then I was like, well, maybe it's not banking. What do I do now? And now it is banking again. So, it's one of those things where it's just like you just kind of have to roll with it sometimes. And your life is you do what makes you happy, right? And just like, I think if you end up just feeling good about yourself and the people around you, that's all you can really hope for.
Yeah, you've lived a lot of different lives by 26 already, so.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, you definitely, speaking as a film school graduate, I think that you kind of dodged a bullet with film school. That was like I feel like almost every single thing I've learned about the movies, with a couple of exceptions, I should have and could have just learned making movies on my own. Like screenwriting classes were interesting because like it taught the format a little bit more and explained like the ins and outs of why it's different than, writing a play, for instance. But like I actually graduated from film school with like zero knowledge of how to do camera stuff or lighting stuff. And my friend Darren ended up DPing my first feature with me, and he was constantly shocked on that set because Darren is an incredibly knowledgeable person, and he was constantly shocked. He's like, how did you make it through 4 years of film school without realizing that you're breaking the 180 rule here? Or how did you make it through film school without realizing how to do key lighting? And I'm like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was like, I don't think, I mean, I met a lot of cool people and had fun. So that's part of film school. But I think that I could have done that for a lot less money. So you dodged a bullet there.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better. I mean, I feel fine anyway, but yeah. No, I get it. Life is weird.
Yeah, law school is a big thing too, because like I have tons of lawyers in my family, and that just kind of be like I know that your job is like a big thing with you too, but I don't know any casual lawyers. Like law is basically their entire lives.
Yeah, that's true. No, so maybe I dodged a bullet there too. Who knows? Well, the world may never know.
Yeah, but I mean, what? Back to my original point.
Oh lordy,
you're pretty happy with where you are at this point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I have gone through some realizations that I would like to share.
Oh, yeah.
And so let us all recap and remember that I want to get married, and I very much wanted Ryan to propose.
Oh,
and
you willed it into existence.
I did. I manifested my destiny, and here it is. And if it isn't the consequences of mine own actions. And so it's really funny because since Ryan has moved in and like I'm getting to the point where things are like getting more real, we're getting married in 8.5 months. I'm starting to realize things about myself and anxieties that I have that I didn't know that I would have.
Okay.
And I think it's really interesting. And I fleshed it out with Ryan, and I was like, listen, my guy, none of this means I don't want to marry you, and none of this means that I'm not going to marry you, but these are feelings that I'm having, and I want you to know that I'm having these feelings.
This is good stuff to like discuss with your fiance, because so many people don't. So
right, yeah. So, and I'm really happy that I'm in a relationship where I can be upfront with how I feel and not feel judged and not feel that it's like a relationship ending conversation every time you bring up a hard thing.
Oh my God, yeah.
So, I mean, here are a couple of my anxieties that I have learned that I have that I didn't know I had.
Hold on. It's Shannon, anxiety time. It's Shannon telling us what bums her out. Hey.
I love that.
That's going to be a song from now on.
I love it. I want to produce it and send it to the Grammys. I do.
I think the best I can do is make it the ringtone for your phone.
Alrighty then. Anyway, so first of all, I think I've mentioned before that Ryan and I come from two very different family styles.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's very obvious.
I mean, you have a very unique family style.
Well, yes. So I would like to just say that, like, Ryan's family is very anti-divorce. They don't, people in his family don't get divorced. Like his parents have been together for 30 plus years, whatever, right? And in my family, I'm the child of 2 divorces on both sides. So it's, my mom's been divorced twice and my dad's been divorced twice.
Oh.
And so like by some form of math there, I've gone through like 8 divorces.
Does not surprise me with your mom from what I know about her, but it does surprise me a little bit with Brian. So
yeah. Well,
yeah, life is life.
So all of that to say that I am starting to realize that I don't have a good model for marriage. I don't know what it looks like because I've never seen it. And so from observing Ryan's family, I can get an idea of what it is. But because I didn't grow up in it, it's just not ingrained in me. And I'm like realizing like, oh, marriage is going to be something I've never done before and something that I don't know how to do. And for someone like me who knows everything and is right all the time, that is a very scary thing.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to Ryan about it, and I said, listen, I have been on my own since I was 19. I've been the only person that I'm held accountable to. In terms of my personal happiness, how I run my finances, how I run my lifestyle, I have been the only person that I've been accountable to. So therefore, marriage is a scary thing that I didn't recognize would be a scary thing, because I'm going to have to be giving up some control to my partner so that we can be balanced partners in making decisions and things like that. But that is very triggering for me, because when I was young, a child, I had no choice, but other people were making decisions for me that were not in my best interest.
Oh, yeah.
So then when I became independent and on my own, I finally had control over my best interests and the decisions that, you know, I had control of my own destiny. And so it feels like I'm giving that up. But I know I'm not. I know it's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like an irrational thought, because I'm not giving it up. I'm sharing it with Ryan.
Yeah, it's like you're adding one extra person to the council
right.
of Shannon.
Yeah.
And then in return, you're being added to the council of Ryan, so as a consultant.
So, I mean, that's just like a kind of a realization that I came to, and I didn't realize that it gave me so much anxiety. And so, I mean, there's been other things that also have been a little scary for me. So, for example, like I said, Ryan's family is very anti-divorce. And I know from experience that sometimes divorce is a good thing. And I was talking to Ryan, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable going into a marriage where divorce is completely off the table. And I know that sounds like, for him, initially, when hearing that, his thing was like, well, if we're going into this thinking that divorce is an option, then it's just inevitable, isn't it?
I don't think so.
No, and I don't think so either. But for someone who's grown up in that environment where the anti-divorce ideology is so ingrained and part of his childhood and part of who he is, that's a scary thing for him to hear, you know?
Yeah. My both of my parents' families are very anti-divorce too, and there's still 3 divorces, I want to say, among like all of my aunts and uncles. But I have, 12 or 13 aunts and uncles. So that's a pretty good track record for the most part, I want to say. But I don't think, the concept of having divorce on the table is a very interesting thing, because I don't look at it like as it's inevitable, like Ryan was saying. I kind of look at it like, okay, this is going to be our free agent contract for each other for the next couple of years. And if this relationship is still good, we can reevaluate this. But also, I think that makes you work a little bit more too, because if you're in a relationship where, I definitely have some family members who have been in these marriages where divorce is like completely off the table. I have seen it's been 100% of the time in my family, the husband just doesn't try and just does a lot of immature and kind of crappy things because he knows he's not going to get divorced regardless. So, and I think that it's an interesting concept to put divorce on the table for especially somebody you love and you're about to get married to, because what it basically does is it says we are going to grow together. So
no, that's true. And I think so too, that when you put divorce on the table, it just means you're being realistic. And I told Ryan, I said, listen, just because it's on the table doesn't mean I'm going to divorce you for any old thing. You know,
I don't think you would do that anyway.
No, obviously. And I said, the goal, Ryan, is not to get divorced. That's my goal. Let's work towards that goal together.
Yay!
And but the thing was, we talked about it, and I said, okay, rather than just saying, yeah, divorce is, a possibility, let's talk about, what that means. And so I said, these are the situations in which I would divorce you. I said, for abuse.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
And which I don't think Ryan would ever hurt me or do anything to hurt me, but I'm just saying, like, across the board, that's where I stand.
One of my aunts, that was, it wasn't an abusive, like, physical relationship, but she just did marry somebody who was, like, a huge drunk. And that's part of the reason that she got out of that. They didn't have any kids or anything, but, like, I feel like that, like, the abuse, either emotionally or physically, is, like, absolutely, you got to get out of there because it's going to kill you.
So, I mean, I said, listen, I would divorce you in terms of abuse, in terms of cheating. But, I mean, so cheating is also an interesting concept to me because I don't think the cheating itself is what frustrates me. It's the fact that, like, you have an understanding in your relationship and a trust, and you violate that trust. And I think that's the biggest violation of trust that you can have in a relationship. And so, adverse to that, you know, I had an ex-boyfriend who his grandmother cheated on his grandfather. And it was because the grandfather was abusive and she couldn't leave him. So, you know, she ended up cheating. And so in terms of, like, you know, protecting yourself in that time, I can kind of justify her actions in that respect because, you know, there was abuse and then there was cheating. So I don't know. I feel like that was kind of, you know, her protecting herself the best way she could while still trying to find emotional intimacy with someone who actually cared about her.
Yeah.
And then the third reason would just be, like, if I didn't love him anymore, you know, which I hope was never the case, and I don't think it'll ever be the case.
I think the third thing that you've brought up is an interesting thing that people are just kind of talking about in the last, generation of marriage in general, because there are a lot of people out there who believe, and I kind of believe this, but also kind of believe I'm on both sides of the argument, that, like, most relationships just kind of run their course eventually. Like, you love somebody for a while, then sometimes you just grow in different directions for no fault of anybody's own. And that's kind of like the amicable divorce in that case. Like, I remember on How I Met Your Mother, they talked about this with Ted's parents, because Ted's parents, very much loved each other, raised 2 kids, and then just grew apart. And actually, Ted's dad introduced his mom to her new boyfriend, which I was like, well, that's weird, but also kind of, like, weirdly mature at the same time.
And I actually know people who have had relationships like that. I know someone who divorced her husband last year, and they still, like, go to the gym together occasionally because they just weren't meant for marriage anymore, but they are still really, really good friends. So that amicable divorce kind of situation that you were just describing.
Yeah, I think that I'm a firm believer that there's a lot of different ways to love somebody, and it's not just the romantic love. Like, my last ex-girlfriend is seeing somebody right now that, like, none of that was, like, hurtful to me when I found out about that or anything, because you can still love somebody as a friend and still, like, respect the time you had together. It also helps that I'm in a good relationship with somebody who suits me very well. So, but I don't know. It just feels like, and I've had that with other people too. Like, I've had people who I've been, like, madly crushing on or madly in love with, and did ask out usually, and, like, we would go on a date or two and it just wouldn't work out, and I'd kind of be like, let's just carry on as friends. And there was some awkwardness to start, but, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to love somebody, and, like, if somebody's, like, physical intimacy and, like, romantic love is so specific and so specific to just one person, and if you have a lot of love to give, like, just. I've been trying to normalize too, telling my friends I love them a lot more too. It's
so funny. Just as I was leaving this morning to come here, Ryan was like, "Tell Hal that I love him."
Oh,
yeah.
That makes me so happy, like, more happy than you can possibly imagine. I love you too, Ryan. You're a good guy.
He is a good guy.
I say that to my friend. So one of my best friends, Steve, who I think listens to this podcast, he's up in Massachusetts. Like, one of my all-time favorite best friends. Like, he and I just get each other a lot, but I haven't seen him in person in, like, 5 or 6 years. A, because of COVID, and B, because he's developed this, like, debilitating, like, chronic fatigue syndrome where he can't really do very much most of the time. And, like, we still talk over Facebook Messenger a lot, and we end every conversation with, "Hey, man, I love you, and I love you too, man." And I don't know, I like normalizing that. Some people are weirded out by it, but not a lot.
No, yeah, I think it's becoming more accepted, and I tell my friends I love them all the time. I mean, we at the party that we had last night, I'm a very lovey drunk, so I was going
Me
out around
too.
to everybody, and I was like, I just love you so much, and I appreciate you, and I love you so much, and so having a great time. So that's pretty normal in my immediate friend group, which is funny because from time to time I'll say it to others of my friends, and it's kind of like really funny because I'll say like I love you, and they'll just kind of, it's like telling someone you love them for the first time where they're not ready, like what happened with me and Ryan when I told him I loved him for the first time, and he was like, that's nice. And that was an interesting that was the whole thing.
For me, it's never a conscious decision with me. It's just something I blurt out accidentally in the course of things. Like I couldn't even pinpoint with Lauren the first time I told her I loved her.
Aww.
I think it was more like I probably casually just said it at one point, like or something like that. But at some point it evolved into just like the lovey stuff, and I really like that.
Yeah, with Ryan, it was, I always say I love you too soon in a relationship. That is my fault. That is absolutely what. And then I convince myself that they're going to say it back, and then I'm crushed, and it's great. And then it's not great. But I mean, everything went really well with Ryan in that respect, where he was like, listen, I'm not ready to say it back yet. I think I do feel it for you, but I don't want to respond if I'm not 100% there. But that only took like a couple of weeks, so it was fine.
Yeah, I think once the feelings are reciprocated, it's a little easier to put like more substance to having you love somebody. It kind of reminds me a little bit. Did you ever see American Pie, like the very first one?
Yeah.
That was like an interesting subtext. That's the wrong word, but an interesting aspect of the end of the movie that like nobody talks about is that like I can't remember what the guy's name is, but it's like Tara Reid's character and then her boyfriend there. Their two hangups are that she doesn't want to jump into sex too quickly because it's meaningful for her, and he doesn't want to say I love you too quickly. And at the end, they both compromise, and it was a mistake. You can tell by the end of the movie because he didn't really love her. She wasn't really ready for sex. And I thought that was like a very interesting like dichotomy of like, you know, what intimacy is for both of them, because for Tara Reid's character it was like sexual intercourse and like sexual intimacy, and she didn't want to do that without having those feelings, and then the guy, it was saying I love you and expressing it that way. So but I tend to be on the side of people too that say I love you too often. Like the last girlfriend I had before Lauren, I did blurt that out like pretty early on in the relationship. And then like the next time we hung out, this girlfriend was like, hey, do we want to talk about the bomb that you dropped on me last time?
Yeah, that's a fun one. What do you think is the shortest amount of time you've waited to tell someone that you love them?
Maybe a couple of weeks or something like that. Because
I want to say for me, it was like 2 weeks. Like a week to 2 weeks. And it was like, the whole thing about it was like, it was a whirlwind kind of thing. I fell like head over heels because this was the first time that someone had actively pursued me. I was really, and this was like my first relationship in college.
Oh yeah.
So I am coming off of all my high school relationships, which obviously mean nothing. And so therefore, I mean, like this was like, I'm out on my own. I'm an adult. I'm getting into adult things, and then
it's amazing too how much like the high school and even early college relationships feel so much more intense. I guess because of your hormones, and then when you look back on them, you're like, this wasn't a relationship. This was puppy love.
It's strange, especially because I was with that person for so long, and I like marriage was on the table in that relationship.
That early, wow.
That early. Yeah. But one of my big problems was, so when we first met, I was 20. And to commit to someone at 20, and like, because my vision of my 20s was all the sex. And so I just didn't expect to feel that way for someone. And eventually I understood that I really didn't want to marry him, but he very much wanted to marry me, mostly because I took care of him.
One of these kind of relationships.
Yep, that was a good time. It wasn't a good time. Anyway, so I mean, but it was definitely very different from what anything I'd experienced before, but it was because I was so young. It was because, like, in high school, like, teenage boys don't know how to be romantic, so.
Yeah. It's the concept of romance has changed for me over time, too, because, like, so when I was actually 19 or 20, I want to say, I fell head over heels for somebody I worked at with Hershey Park over the summer, that particular summer, and we did date for, like, maybe 2 weeks or something like that, but it was like a situation where she was the person I was the absolute most interested in on my list of I have a crush on every girl kind of thing, and it was the only time that had ever happened to me, and like it really didn't go anywhere, and yeah, I was crushed for like an entire year and like didn't eat a lot and just worked out a ton. The only time in my adult life I've been under 200 pounds was that year in particular, and like. Then I got back the next summer and she had a boyfriend who she ended up marrying too. And they're a lovely couple now. But it's fun to look back at that, like, because that was one of the relationships that wrecked me the most. And there wasn't any substance to it whatsoever. Like, there was just like a week of hand holding and like kissing. Like, seriously.
Yeah. My high school relationships were weird overall. Oh gosh. I don't think I've ever told you about this, and I can't believe I'm about to say it like on the air. Anyway,
Shannon's gonna say something really, really risque.
Yeah, pretty much. So, okay. So, let's backtrack. I'm 13. All right? And, reverse. Anyway, so I'm 13 and my mom is engaged at this point. She believes that our house is haunted. So she calls down this paranormal investigation group from Erie, Pennsylvania.
Is it okay that I'm laughing at this, or should I not?
Yes, it's absolutely fine. Because this is a wild fucking story, okay?
Cannot wait.
So this investigation crew comes down. It's this guy and like a couple of his friends that are coming down to investigate our house. And over the next couple of weeks, my mom starts cheating on her fiance with the leader of this ghost investigation group.
Oh, I thought you were going to say with the ghost.
No. Oh, shit. Did my mom cheat on people with ghosts? Damn, I'm going to have to unpack that in therapy.
The ghost investigator is just more real and more sad.
Fair enough. And so eventually I find out and I'm all confused because I'm like, Mom, you're engaged. What are you doing? And so she said, oh, well, you know how in the fairy tale castle land that we live in your dreams, how like queens have a lot of different consorts and things? And I'm like, okay. And she was like, well, that's like that. I'm still marrying Joe, but John is like one of my consorts.
Oh man, she picked the two guys with the blandest names too.
And she was like, so that's what's happening, but don't tell Joe. That was like the whole thing. And I was like, okay, that's suspicious. Well, eventually Joe finds out, right? And, breaks off the engagement. It's a whole thing. Now, my mom starts dating John. And I had a crush on a person at my school at the time. And John was like, you should meet my stepson. He's, totally, once you meet him, you'll forget about this other guy and you guys should totally date. And so next thing I know, I'm dating John's stepson. And then we date for about 3 months or so. And then eventually my mom and John get married. And eventually this guy, the other 13-year-old that I dated was now like my step brother.
Oh man, that's weird. And
we had to like live in the same house for extended periods of time, and that was all around awkward.
When you mentioned that he said you should date his stepson, I didn't even consider that this was an inevitability the way you said that. It just
So this was like my first boyfriend, like first official boyfriend, and it was all very weird. And of course, on top of all the other things that were going on when I was 13, we ended up breaking up because he wanted to have sex at 13. And I was like, nope, I'm uncomfortable. So I broke up with him because everything was moving too fast for a 13-year-old.
Yeah, sex at 13 is even today, that's probably, I mean, it all depends on the person, I suppose, but that seems like young.
It is really young, and that's why I was like, this is weird. I mean, I felt like a piece of shit when I let him touch my boob. You know, like, it was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I let somebody touch my boob and I don't even know if I love him.
Oh.
Wow.
Well, that's a big thing at 13.
Yeah.
Like, touching boobs.
Yeah. So.
Was he also 13?
He was a little younger than me.
Oh, okay.
I think.
So he wanted to have sex at 12, I take it, or?
He was 4 months younger than me. So not. Yeah, just about.
You like the younger guys.
I don't know. I guess. And then another time I dated, so I was 18 and I met this guy who was 28. And we didn't date. We never did anything, actually, but we hung out a lot. And he did at one point ask me out. Now, what happened was we had went to a lecture together. And on the way home from the lecture, like, he was driving and it was like a 40-minute drive. And he asked me at the beginning of the drive home if I would go out with him. And I said no.
Oh.
And so pro tip, don't do that if you're not sure the person is going to say yes, because then you will have a very awkward 40 minutes.
Yeah, that is awkward.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, if I've ever asked a friend out, it's always been at the end of whatever activity we're doing. By complete happenstance. I think it's more procrastination than anything, but like, it just sort of worked out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? Have you dated a lot of people that were significantly older than you?
No, not dated. No. I think the biggest age gap of like sex, I'm probably going to say was about 8 years, 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
He was older. And that was during like my mega hoe phase.
Mega hoe.
So, and that was fun. I should have, no, I'm going to say that. I should have, pursued that a little farther because he made like a bunch of money.
No, you have Orion.
I know I have Ryan now, but looking back.
Yeah, so I think my biggest age gap, I'm trying to think how old I was when the pandemic started. It was probably like 11 years, and it was somebody I'm like...
Were they older or younger than you?
Younger.
Oh, okay.
And this was a weird situation because I had met her at an open mic in Gettysburg, like a week before the pandemic hit. Oof. And then like, she friended me, we started talking, and then like the pandemic hit and there was like, I suddenly was only in the office like 20 hours a week. Mm-hmm. There wasn't as much to do. So we didn't do anything. Like there was no sex or anything even remotely sexual, but we like would talk all day, have Zoom dates. I would drive down to Shippensburg to like see her because like, what else are you going to do during a pandemic? And there was just like, I don't know. There was just a gap in human experience, I want to say, even though we had liked a lot of the same things. It just didn't work out for that. And I think that's why like older, younger relationships sometimes don't work out for that reason, is there's just a gap of experience and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that I didn't think it was going to be anything anyway. It just, a lot of weird circumstances conspired in that situation. I'd also just come up off of a really weird breakup where the girl I was seeing essentially gaslit me for an entire month. That we weren't breaking up, even though she clearly like was pulling away from me. Clearly, like when we would have like a Zoom date, was not paying attention to me at all while we were talking. And I kept trying to force the issue. I was like, something feels wrong here. Like, do we want to talk about this a little bit? And she's like, no, nothing's wrong. This is all just in your head. And then she dumped me for somebody else. So,
oh Lord, I remember. So the person that I dated this was when I was 20 and we were together for nearly 3 years. About a year and a half into the relationship, he dumps me and I was crushed. I was like absolutely crushed. And so there was a 2-week period where I was hoeing around because that's what I do when I'm crushed is I hoe around. And 2 weeks later, he shows up at my apartment. And he's like begging me back and like crying and like just having a whole ass time of it. And I was like, all right, let's talk this through. So I brought him in. I was like, listen, before we talk any further, I need you to know that I've been with other people since we broke up. And that just about, like, destroyed him.
How old was he when this happened? Do you want to...
He was 21,
Yeah.
maybe 22.
It's a little bit harder when you're, like, younger in your dating phase.
Well, and I mean, the whole thing was, you know, I was like, you dumped me. I would have you recall. And it made me really mad that he got so upset about it, because I was just like, what did you expect would happen? And he was like, I can't believe you moved on so quickly. And I was like, see, that's kind of been the fundamental difference between me and a lot of guys I've dated, where they see having sex with someone else after a breakup as moving on. And I don't consider it to be moving on. I just, like, when I had sex after breakups, it was more about finding some sort of intimacy, somebody to think I'm pretty for a little bit, you know.
Just tell me I'm pretty.
Yeah, like, you know, when you're dumped and you're a woman, like, you want to know that other people will be interested in you, or at least for me.
I mean, it's the same for me too. So definitely
Yeah.
not exclusive to women. Like,
well, thank you. So that even validates me further. Anyway.
I think that's like a common fear most people have all the time. Like, even super like hoey around like sexually active people. I feel like everybody is made to be insecure about how attractive they are in today's world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it just like I just kind of felt the double standard there, where I was like, well, if I had dumped you, what would you do? You know?
It's like there's some sort of weird, like, I mean, and I'm sure you could confirm this too, but like some sort of weird possessiveness with men and sexuality with women in general. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to just free ball my brain in this situation. But there is like a weird sort of thing that, like, you know, once you sleep with somebody else, once you're broken up, they no longer possess you. And that's what's the, like, dagger to the heart for the most part.
Right. So that exact sentiment happened after I broke up with a different guy a couple years later. I broke up with him and didn't do a whole lot. I didn't jump immediately into a hoe phase because I was sad about it. And we were still flirting and stuff like that. And I was like, we shouldn't be flirting. I broke up with you. And eventually, like a month later, I had sex with somebody else. And then after that, a couple weeks later, I like texted my ex and I was like, hey, you want to hang? And he was like, have you been with anybody else since we broke up? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, then no, I don't want you anymore. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh, you're tainted.
That's
like,
literally what he said. He was like, well,
gross.
Someone else has been inside you and that makes me uncomfortable. And I'm like, ugh, gross.
Yeah, this is the double standard. A lot of, like, one of 100 double standards that occur.
Yeah.
And that's like this, like, so many like toxic female sexuality things were like ingrained in us growing up. And I remember something my dad said to us at one point was kind of like, you know, men are made to have these urges and women are meant to be the responsible ones that make sure they don't go overboard. And as an 11-year-old hearing this, you never question the wisdom of your dad in this situation.
Right.
And like, I remember these were even conversations we had in high school because Catholic sex education, as we've noted, was pretty terrible. And it was kind of like, man, I've heard someplace that women actually get as horny as men. Can you believe that? And this was like a
shocking,
big revelation for 16, 17-year-old Catholic boys. Because like, and this is part of the possessiveness too, I think. And part of like the whole thing is that like women, especially like how I was raised, were supposed to like not have sex at all. And if you do have sex with somebody, like that's a big thing where you're bonded to each other. So like if you did it with somebody else, that person doesn't possess you anymore for something that they had. And so that's a huge loss mentally for them, which is twisted. And it's not how sexuality is supposed to operate. But that's just like the mindset of especially a lot of young men, I think.
Yeah. No, I think so too. It was so,
to your credit?
No, in my playing devil's advocate against myself, I had no business trying to sleep with my ex. So that was something where I was like, okay, Shannon, come on. But it was so funny because like I tried to hit him up for sex and then he was like, no, because you're tainted now. And then
Gross.
he proceeded to ask me if my best friend was single.
Gross.
And I was like, my guy, why do we still talk?
This is the end of...
Yeah. I was like, no, I don't think so anymore.
Yeah. That's like sex with the ex is definitely a thing that like, it's such a... trope is the wrong word to use, but it's such like a common thing that happens with people. And I think it is just like you were saying, like, A, sex feels really good. B, it confirms that you're attractive to somebody. I've said this to girlfriends a couple of times that like on days where I'm feeling super fat, unattractive, and like unfit, like sex usually makes me feel a lot better because it makes me feel like somebody finds me attractive. But then like, and the comfort level with somebody that you know and, you know,
Yeah.
I assume you felt comfortable with this person. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
so like, it's all that comfort level. It's kind of like, I could go out and try to get comfortable and sexual with a new person, or I could slide back into this person who was definitely not good for me, but just as
Familiar.
yeah, familiar is a
Yeah.
good word.
I actually, so this is really funny. I think about this a lot because I don't think very highly of myself deep down inside.
No,
I know, it's crazy.
Shannon, I'm here to tell you, you're a pretty awesome goddamn person. So,
That was me crying.
oh, I thought that was you
tears of joy.
hyperventilating.
No, I didn't know how to make the sound of tears of joy. Anyway.
I wouldn't host a podcast with a non-awesome person. So.
Oh, good. Awesome. Well, I mean, a couple of times in my life, like people that I've hooked up with and not actually dated have like reached out to me like years later, like years. And I'm just like, you're still thinking about me like 5 years later. And I kind of just like dust off my shoulders and give myself a little pat on the back. It's like, I'm stuck in your brain now.
Yeah, it happens for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's happened 3 times. 3 times, I think. There was one guy who reached out and he was like, you don't happen to be single, are you? And I'm like, no. And this was like, geez, like years after the fact. And he was like, oh, that's a shame. We had really great sex when we were hooking up, and I don't think anyone's measured up since. And I just was kind of hoping. And I was like, first of all, I'm flattered. Second of all, even if I was single, that's a lot of pressure. And I don't know if I can meet your expectations of how I was like 3 years ago.
You were better, probably.
I don't know.
Oh.
So like I think about that. I'm like, man, would I have really disappointed him? Like not me rising to the expectation.
This must be a bit like, because this happened with Lauren actually a couple of months ago. She said like some not rando, but some guy she matched with like, and hadn't talked to in like 7 or 8 months, just texted her out of the blue once we were together. And she was like, dude, you totally, like, I haven't heard from you in 7 or 8 months and you're just hitting me up. Like, get lost.
Yeah.
She didn't say that because she's too nice, but
Yeah.
so I have done that one time. And again, the circumstances were a little weirder because it was somebody that like I went on a date with, we went on 2 dates. It was actually pretty good. This was like 6 years ago or so. And I did like her a lot. And then right at the same time, one of my best friends like expressed a lot of feelings for me and like went like full out to make a play for me. And like I was very confused. I ended up dating this one friend for a bit. It was a total disaster and it ended very poorly for reasons I won't get into on this podcast because I don't want to call anybody out for it. But yeah, and so like months later, I kind of like I actually told this other girl that you know, hey, just so you know, like, I'm not ignoring you. Just like, I have a friend who just made a huge play for me, who's one of my best friends. And this is just a very confusing time for me, which is still not a great thing to hear, but at least it was honest. And then I did hit her up a little bit later and I was like, this was a total disaster. Didn't work out. I'm really sorry for the way things went down. And it was kind of like, are you still single sort of thing, which she was. She was not interested in dating me for good reasons. But to her credit, like, we talked and like, we're still friends just online for a bit. We drifted apart eventually, but like, you know, it was a good cut. Like sometimes I think, especially when you're dating, like everybody makes mistakes. And sometimes like hindsight's 20/20. If you make a really bad dating mistake and miss out on somebody that you thought had a lot of potential, that is just like a specter that can haunt you for a little bit. Even though in reality, like if I had gone the other way, who's to say it also wouldn't have ended poorly?
No, that's true.
It's just like the path you didn't take.
I think the weirdest resurgence I've experienced recently was I hooked up with a guy once, like, I want to say early pandemic, maybe right before the pandemic. And I thought it went well. We hung out, had a great time. And he had said, like, we should do this again. Let me know what your schedule looks like. And so I was like, sure. So the next day I checked my work schedule. I was like, hey, this is when I'm available next. And he never messaged me back. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's a shame. And then a year later, I'm dating someone new, Ryan. And this guy reaches out and he's like, hey, like, do you want to get together? I was like, no, I'm dating someone now. And then like a couple months later, he hit me up again. And it got to the point where I had to block him because he just kept coming out of the woodwork. And I was like, all right, I'm not dealing with this anymore. So I blocked him. And then like 2 months ago, he requested to link with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's when you've run out of ideas.
I'm like, my guy, was it that good? Like, I can't fathom what else it could have been.
He just wants to be one of your business connections because of the great sex. So
he's like, she's got her shit together, I guess. I don't know what about like my blowjob skills really just.
Sometimes it's just like because everybody is so different. Like maybe something about the motion or everything just really got him going for whatever reason. So.
Oh my gosh, it was just a whole. So I haven't like. I didn't like hit the ignore button yet. I'm like considering like, so I'm a naturally curious person. Okay. So like part of me wants to connect just to see what he has to say. Because like I said, this is like 4 years ago almost. And I need to know. Like I need to know. So maybe if he listens to this podcast, he can tell me.
I bet you he listens to this podcast. I would bet that. Out of curiosity, is this the gentleman who left you that really strange message on your Facebook?
No, that's got to be like a bot.
I thought it was a bot too because it felt like the English syntax was a little bit off, but it was so. I thought that was really funny.
Hello, dear. No one calls me dear. My grandma calls me dear.
Yeah, it's like the trope is like, oh, if you get a message over WhatsApp, it's always like, dear friend, I'd like you to invest in Ethereum's competitor to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
What that kind of reminds me of actually when I was reading that is, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but so there was somebody who used to work for me at WITF as an announcer. I'll just say her name, Maddie. I don't think anybody's listening here. She was a super cool woman. Like she was also like, she was very attractive, but also not weirdly not attractive in the way that I like women for whatever reason. So like I was like tons of guys were always fawning over her and like we always just would talk as friends a lot of the time. And then she moved on to become a meteorologist like in Altoona because that's what she was studying for. And I still keep up with her. Like she has a professional Facebook and then like a private one where she uses like a fake name because the comments that weird backwater middle-aged men leave on her meteorology page, like if she's posting like, hey, we're gonna have sun here for the weekend, so everybody get out your shorts. Oh, you look beautiful, hun. Oh, you're gorgeous. And some guy actually like linked a song to her the other day when I saw one. It was like, yes, this is a song that describes the urges I'm feeling right now. And I remember, like, I don't talk with her anymore, but I did chat with her one time, and I was like, I'm always amazed at the strange, like, middle-aged men who will send you, like, weird love and desiring posts. And she's like, oh, feel free to just comment cringe anytime anybody does that. And I chickened out. I never actually did that.
I would. I absolutely would.
Yeah, I could be the cringe knight, basically, like calling out men
the
for
vigilante.
I sometimes, like, out of just curiosity, like, if I read a comment on her page where it's like, clearly somebody like, and this is like stuff you're expressing for somebody you have never met who is just like a face on the TV. And I'll look at them and there's always like a model it follows. It's always like a middle-aged man who doesn't seem to have a lot in his life in the backwater woods of Pennsylvania. Or I think she's in Kentucky now too because she moved. And oh man, the Kentucky men are, you know.
See, that's
just
the
imagine
thing.
Mitch McConnell hitting on you every single time.
Oh God. So here's my problem with dating sites. Okay, let me start there.
Ooh, okay.
What I love about Tinder is that I can swipe right, I can swipe left. If I swipe right, it doesn't immediately tell me if we match or not. So in my head, I can convince myself that they just haven't seen my profile yet. So the rejection is not immediate. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And And on the flip side, you know, I don't know who has swiped right on me, which is fine because then like it's a little surprise. And that's why I don't like things like Hinge or Facebook dating, because what happens when you swipe right on someone is they get a push notification that you like them immediately. And so I will immediately know whether or not they're interested in me, and that is not information I wanted.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it, because Hinge is by far my favorite of the dating things, and not just because I met Lauren on it. Like, in fact, that's like a recurring joke we have is like, oh yeah, we'll give the greatest Hinge testimonial ever.
It's the app designed to be deleted.
Yeah, first off, I love that as like its entire purpose.
I love the commercials; they're so cute.
But like, as obviously, I'm not dating I'm dating someone, but I'm not on the dating field anymore. Yeah. And I am best utilized usually when I can just have a conversation with somebody and just talk with them and like, hey, this is an interesting thing, or hey, I really like this about you. And Bumble and Tinder and those ones are mostly designed to just be like shallow, oh yeah, you're attractive, or oh, you're not attractive. But Hinge has prompts that like start conversations, and that's usually where I shine. And also like you get to know the person a lot better. So like I always would get tons of matches on Hinge, but like 1 to 2 a week on Bumble, for instance.
Well, Ryan and I met on Bumble. And so I made a joke to him that our wedding should be bee themed, and that would be kind of funny. But so the thing about Hinge also is, so like I said, when you swipe right on someone, they get a push notification. So that means that I got a push notification for everyone that swiped right on me. So I knew who was interested in me. And you wouldn't think this, but that is information that I did not want to know.
Were they not up to your attractive standards or something?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. And I know that's shallow. I know it is.
Was it lots of middle-aged men from the backwoods
Generally,
of Pennsylvania?
yeah.
Oh, no.
And so like the whole thing is like, it boggles my mind when I was on the dating apps and I got the push notifications, plus, you know, when I'm out and about and people hit on me or say something crude to me, like I get old men in the bank all the time who this is my favorite one. I don't know who crafted this line, but they've spread it to all of the men in Perry and Dauphin County. So I don't know what, I don't know what they're doing, but
what's the line?
It's always, you're a very attractive woman, or you're a very good-looking young lady. Like, it's just like, it's very
That's not even a line. It's just a statement of fact.
It's very formal. It's just like oddly formal. Like they're not even trying. And the thing is, like, I'll look at them and I'll be like, okay, sure, I'm hot, but I'm apparently ugly enough that you think you have a shot. And that is what hits me right here in my hard place.
Aww.
And I know that's terribly bitchy to say, but
I mean, you have a right to feel however you want to feel about old men hitting on you. Like, I wouldn't consider that to be bitchy whatsoever.
I know, but like, I just don't think I don't think they've thought it through.
No. Yeah, this is like the weird thing with like not just older men, but I think even younger men, like just hitting on super attractive people all the time. I equate it to like more intricate catcalling, because with catcalling I'm always like, what is your end game here? Are you just hoping the person's gonna like drop their pants at you? And like essentially like hitting on the teller, for instance, at the bank at work, like what do you think's gonna happen? Like you're gonna date somebody who all of your frame of references, like remember what I said about dating somebody just 11 years younger than me, and we're talking probably like 3 decades ish in your case. Yeah, like what frames of reference do you have to talk about with this person? And even worse, if you do have lots of frames of references, how immature is this person that they haven't like gotten to? This is the Leonardo DiCaprio debate all of a sudden.
But it's even worse, because here's the thing.
They're not attractive old men. No,
not even that. What I'm saying is they don't know what they're in for. Because just imagine if one day I just wanted to ruin someone and he asked me out and I'd be like, okay, let's go on a date. And I make him pay for the most expensive dinner. And then I proceed to be his fucking nightmare until he breaks up with me. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, you're taking a huge risk by just assuming that I'm great. Yeah. And so therefore, like, I don't know. I would probably do that. Like, if I had the opportunity again, I'd be like, okay, let's go out. And then proceed to make his life a living hell.
See, this is why I like talking with people before dates, too. I have dated incredibly few life ruiners, like 0 life ruiners, honestly. If there was any ruination going on, it was like 2 years into a relationship where we just got tired with each other and we weren't well suited for each other. But like you said, like you could be a ruin. You know what that kind of reminds me of is Drew Brooks has a joke about like his friends telling him, hey, you should ask that girl out. What's the worst that can happen? Death. Death is the worst that can happen. She could just be in a mood where she wants to kill large people. And I think that might be my favorite one of Drew's jokes. Because it's so...
I love Andrew Brooks.
Me too. Because that's such a... like, the great thing about a comedy, in my opinion, is like just seeing somebody's point of view. And that point of view just makes me laugh so badly.
No, but I'm just saying, like, I could really change the world that way. You see, like, in a vigilante sense, where I'll just... like, any man... who like remotely tries to date me, I will date him and then I will ruin him and he'll never do it again. I'll be saving hundreds, if not thousands.
It's a very promising young woman, but fiscally.
Yeah, and like not with all the murder.
I don't think there was like the only...
I didn't actually watch the movie, so there might not be murder in it.
It's a fascinating movie just because like my sisters were really into it when the trailer came out and it's like it's fascinating because like all the artistic, even like cinematography and set design choices are all very unique. Like when you watch movies, you tend to see about the same sort of set designs or same sort of camera angles and situations like that. And everything in that movie was very I hadn't seen before. Not to mention it was a great story.
Watch it. It's on my list.
Yeah, my list is pretty long too.
Yeah.
But yeah, old men at the bank, please do not hit on Shannon because she will ruin you.
Or else. Like
yeah, you do not want to be with a life ruiner.
Yeah.
And yet, like, yeah. I think I've only ever asked out one. This wasn't even a service worker person, but just like there was somebody, like one of the jobs I was working at in Los Angeles where I was a PA. I made deliveries to Game Show Network, and like the one receptionist that would like take the packages every time. She and I started talking a couple of times. And then like on my last delivery, because I'm not going to make it awkward for months afterwards where I knew my contract was ending and I wasn't going to do this job, I was like, hey, you know, I feel like we have a connection. Could I get your number and maybe we'll go out sometime? And we did. We went out twice. And actually, we still occasionally talk here and there. I mean, she's in California. I'm in here.
Yeah.
And it's mostly just like pleasantries here and there because that's what Hal does is when he's not romantically interested in someone anymore, he still likes them.
He's like, friend.
Yeah, let's just be friend. I read someplace too that like a sign of sociopathy is that you're friends with people you've dated after you're done dating.
Oof.
And I'm like, I don't feel like a sociopath. I mean, nobody feels like a sociopath, but...
I think it's different though. I think what they're saying is like that possessiveness that you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I
Yeah.
can understand that. Possessiveness and also like just trying to keep somebody in your sexual Rolodex.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you're okay. I don't think you're a sociopath. Now, I just thought of something, though, because, you know, my whole plan for vigilante shit in terms of, like, ruining old men's lives, because I'm getting married, I obviously can't do that plan. But I think what I might start doing is calling their wives. I think I might start doing that.
It's so funny you mentioned that right now because this particular, the woman I was just talking about, I did post something on Facebook about like the next married man that matches with me and goes on a date with me, I'm telling their girlfriend. I'm like, yeah, we're going to do that.
I've done that before. We have what, 5 minutes? I have time.
Yeah,
I have time for
it's
this
arbitrary.
Story. So I have time for this story. So during the pandemic, I was unemployed, but I was working with a nonprofit to help feed kids in the local areas. That because I live in Perry County. There's a lot of people that are food insecure. Through that, I met this man who I got along really well with his son. His son was like 8 years old.
Aww.
And, you know, we hung, you know, I like kids, so we were just hanging out, playing games and stuff. And he was like, hey, he's doing like remote learning and I work. Would you be willing to help him with his homework and stuff like that? I'll pay $100 a week. I'm like,
nice.
That's not bad. I'm going to do it. So I was like, or no, it was something like that, $100 a week. Anyway, so they lived really close by and I was like, yeah, why not? I'm not employed. I might as well make some extra cash. And it ended up that we got like a month into it. And what I was doing during the pandemic was I was taking walks and jogs to try and stay in shape since, you know, we were all at home. And one time I jogged past their house and he sent me a text message that was like, hey, I just saw you run by and your ass looked great. And he was married, and I was tutoring his son. So I told his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're divorced now. And he doesn't look good.
Did he look good beforehand?
Well, I mean, he was like relatively handsome.
Oh, you mean like he's just like let himself go?
He looks rough, like just a man who's gone through a rough divorce and is dealing with like custody stuff. I don't think it was all my fault though, because she didn't. She like kind of explained it away, where he told her that he was trying to be encouraging of like my workout regimen.
No.
And I was like, maybe if you want to be encouraging of someone's workout regimen, you say, hey, I see you're working out, good for you, or don't say a fucking thing, because that's weird.
Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that one text probably did not ruin his marriage, that if he was willing to do that.
No, I think there were other people. Yeah, I think there was probably other women and that kind of thing. So I don't take credit for the downfall of their marriage, just a small part.
I feel like that's something I would never say to somebody except like, you know, if I was dating them for a while, I might be like, yeah, your butt looked out of this world while you were running. And even then that might be a little weird.
Yeah, no, it's weird. So don't fucking do that. Don't be weird to women or men or anybody. Don't be weird, goddammit.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, being weird is in my repertoire all the time. But strangely enough, like I've gotten to the point where like seconds after I say something weird, thankfully, my weirdness is not relegated to the creepy kind. At least I don't think so.
My favorite is when you say something weird and you're like, how? Why would you say that?
Yeah, I do that all the time. It's like... It's part of it is the improv brain, I think, because you're always just constantly reacting to things.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes it's very hit or miss. Like, I had a show last night where it was odd because I felt like none of my jokes landed whatsoever. But luckily, like, this is one of the good differences between stand-up and improv is like my jokes weren't not landing, but they weren't like, there was no thunderous laughter from a full room. Mm-hmm. But then like one of my scene partners had a lot of really good jokes that made the audience laugh so much that we had to pause and wait for them to stop. And I'm like, this was really cool. Like mine weren't landing, but John's like made, like for instance, we were doing a group game where the theme of the game was like, okay, get in here. All of you are odd pizza toppings because pizzas was our suggestion. I decided to be an anchovy. Somebody else was a banana pepper. And John just decided to be pubic hair.
Ew.
But it is very much an ew moment.
Yeah.
But like the entire audience laughed because it was a mixture of surprise and also like, oh, that would definitely be a neglected.
Right, yeah, like I wouldn't order it.
No,
even if it was on the menu.
Nobody ever orders it. But then that became the game the whole time because all of us were just like, what is the like situation in which this would be a regular pizza? So we were having conversations with this rejected pizza topping, and that was the humor in it. Was like he invented all these situations in which he would be the topping on a pizza. And I still think it's very ew, but it's very funny at the same time. So I don't know how you feel about that.
I guess this had to be their moment. I think. I mean, I could see it. I could see it being funny.
Yeah, you never know what an audience will, as we know as stand-ups, will find funny from one day to another.
Yeah.
But anyway, as we're finishing up, speaking of shows, you have a show coming up again.
I wanted to mention that. And let me pull it up real quick so I can give all the right details.
With the great Gary Limoges, too.
The great Gary Limoges.
A wonderful person I sadly do not see very much anymore.
Well, you'll see him if you come out to the show on Saturday.
It really depends. This Saturday?
Yeah.
I'm working.
Rude.
Yeah, it's very rude.
So Be Better Than Hal, come out to the show this Saturday. It is at the Vegetable Hunter Vegan Cafe and Boutique Brewery. Please don't hold that against us. Tickets are $25. Includes admission and a beer or soft drink. And
that better be a goddamn good soft drink for $25.
I mean, it better be. I mean, but there are some really great comedians. So Manny Santiago is headlining.
Yeah, Hurricane's on there too, right?
Hurricane's on there. Myself, Gary, Sarah, and Lennon. So
Lennon got added.
Yeah.
Lennon is one of my like low-key favorite like comedians, period.
I'm so excited.
I don't even know if I said low-key, like high-key. I really love Lennon.
Yeah. So I'm excited for this show. Please come out to it. And like I said, the Vegetable Hunter in Carlisle. And I'm sure there will be more than one vegan joke made.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. That's the show I have coming up.
Yay! I'm so happy you have a show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the rest of us are trying to get back into doing stand-up regularly at the Harrisburg Comedy. So
yeah.
as a final, like I had one night about a week ago where I was off on Thursday, and I'm totally planned to go to stand up, but I was just so exhausted for whatever reason. I eventually just got to the point at like 7 o'clock where I was talking, because I talked to Lauren pretty much all day, and I'm like, I think I'm just tired. I know this sucks. I haven't been to an open mic in a month plus, but I think I just need to listen to my body. And she's like, I'm proud of you for doing that.
Yeah, that's happened to me a couple of times. I get it. Sometimes you just got to prioritize things. And for me, as much as I love doing comedy, my health's going to come first. And listen to your body, people.
But the thing is, like, I finally am flush with material because I've been writing songs like crazy.
Oh, good.
In fact, like I had the one about like porno comments that was like a funny thing, and I've done other songs. Like all these songs too are based off of stand-up jokes that I had that like sometimes would land, sometimes wouldn't land, but in song form you can just do more wordplay. And so I'm really excited to try them out whenever I get the opportunity to actually, because I worked till 10:30 last Thursday too.
Yeah.
So yeah, come out and support Shannon, by the way, because back to my original point. It's in Carlisle, you said? Or?
It's in Carlisle. Yep. So it's going to be good. And just like come out and laugh. Be some good comedians.
Shannon is a very funny person. Gary is a very funny person. Lennon is a really funny person.
Sarah's funny. Hurricane's funny. Manny's funny. Everybody's funny.
Manny's fantastic.
It's a great lineup.
I've actually never seen Sarah do stand-up ever. For whatever reason, like I don't think I've seen. I might have because I've just seen so many people over the years. But like I talk with her on Facebook I'll occasionally because she was thinking about doing a vid jam at one point too.
Oh, cool.
That I don't think she followed through on, but I see her post jokes and I think she's very funny. So whenever I meet you in real life, Sarah, I will think you are a very funny person. Yeah. But until then, like have a great week. Support Shannon for her show again, second show in 2 weeks, and we'll see you next week. We appear to be back on track.
I think so.
We've recorded 2 episodes in 3 days. So.
Hooray!
But anyway, I've been Hal.
I've been Shannon.
This has been Depression Vacation, and have a wonderful